Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features X Factor number 72, cover dated November 1991. The cover is by Larry Stroman, inked by Milgrom. It's a very busy cover. I feel personally this might have done a bit better as a splash page, but it is an extremely well drawn cover, very interesting to look at. I just feel with the colors and the amount of detail and, as I said, busyness on this, it doesn't exactly pop off the comics racks, I would say. The coloring is having to do a lot of work there in order to draw our attention to the X Factor members, Guido, Polaris, Havoc and Wolfsbane. Interesting too the way that they're selling this as featuring Havoc, Polaris, Wolfsbane and Madrox, who would be the most well-known team members. And another interesting feature is the new cover corner box as well, with the majority of the team minus Quicksilver at the moment, and it is a riff on Whilce Portacio's corner box for the previous iteration of the team, and you can see that here, how it mirrors and matches and plays on that. So we've got Strong Guy making the rabbit ears over Madrox there, rather than Beast over Archangel. I think it's pretty cool. I really like that, and this is Stroman doing this, Portacio on this. So it's a nice little nod to the previous corner box on the title. Now let's open this one up to the first page, and it is a splash page. Larry Stroman, the way he liked to work was he liked to work Marvel style, getting the plot from Peter David, and what he would do is he would draw the first page and he would draw the last page. So there's 22 pages of story here, and then he would pace out the story in between. And what's interesting is, and I'll point it out to you as we get to them, there's a few pages with a lot of panels. Obviously he made decisions regarding the plot, what he really was interested in drawing and what he felt would look good maybe on the page, and then a few other scenes he's just getting through them. Like there's even one page with 15 panels on it, getting through them to get to the pages that he's more interested in. So the title of this story, Multiple Homicide, and the creative team, Peter David, writer, penciler Larry Stroman, inker Al Milgrom, lettered by Michael Heisler, and colored by longtime ex-colorist Glynis Oliver. So we get in the opening pages this TV reporter Ariel O'Hare catching readers up on the end of the previous issue if they missed it, and that's what we get in her news report. And we have a kind of like a down shot here on the body of Madrox covered up here because he was shot to death at the end of the previous issue and fell out the window of the apartment that he was house sitting. And so here we get the aftermath of that and the news report. And this is pretty much like a 6-panel page, even though there's actually only 5 panels. But the way that this is broken up by the side of the policeman's head and hat, it gives you the impression of like 6 panels, a 6-panel grid layout. I think that that's interesting and clever from Stroman, who really does give a lot of thought to the design of his pages. So as I said, basically we just get caught up on what happened at the end of the previous issue, and then this policeman steps forward and pushes the cameraman out from filming the body, and basically says the man lying here is worm food and he doesn't need leeches crawling over him as well. Even if they have 2 legs and a press pass, he deserves that at least, even if nobody knows who he is. And that's the transition point to the next page, where somebody does put 2 and 2 together and recognize that it's Madrox. But another point to make before moving on from this page is that this is a self-portrait by Larry Stroman. So that is him himself from this particular era. And again, we get in the background of the pages like very strange looking people with bizarre physiognomies. But it makes for a lot of variety and interest in the background of Stroman's pages. And clearly he was interested and motivated to draw those caricatures and grotesques in the background. So the person who gets it and puts 2 and 2 together is Val Cooper. And here she is in her work office in the apartment building that some members of X Factor are living in currently before they find their own lodgings. And she, as I said, she's putting two and two together here. The Rosenfelds are the people Jamie Madrox is house sitting for. That's got to be he's dead. So in comes Quicksilver. This is a Peter David comic. And so he writes the team more or less in the vibe of a sitcom, and there are some funny jokes, and this is one of the ones that I do like. Val Cooper, I heard you scream Madrox's name. Did he leave a rubber snake in your coffee cup, or were you simply having an erotic nightmare about him? An erotic nightmare. That's so good. That is funny. So she's there wide-eyed. It was on the news. And another good joke here where Quicksilver says, must have been a slow news night. Pietro, my God, that's cold. It's a cold world. No one knows that better than I. Madrox was a fool, and I do not suffer fools gladly. But if my candor bothers you, Val Cooper, I apologize. We'd best notify the others, don't you think? And it's interesting how Quicksilver addresses Val by her full name, Val Cooper, twice there. Just kind of implying that in the characterization, that character of formality and distance between Quicksilver and the in effect the boss of the team, even though he wants to join the team as well. And of course, I'd be remiss without pointing out how designy this bottom panel is. Open bordered, that black bar in the background, a lot of heavy spotting of blacks on Quicksilver's side profile, really nicely done. And then we get this weird little scene, and we get some information about Guido, because we know nothing about the man except that he was a bodyguard for Lila Cheney, her main bodyguard over in Uncanny X-Men. And now we get a little bit about his background and how his parents were like scrimpers and savers, denying themselves, saving for their old age, and how they told him to learn from them, watch their example. When they weren't busy insulting me, they were saying I should always deny myself useless luxuries and value thriftiness and self-deprivation. Havoc asks, they still feel that way? What changed their minds? No, nothing. They got crushed by a falling satellite. I settled with the owners out of court for a considerable sum, lived great, bought this place, this big mansion here, learned to appreciate the finer things in life. Every time I ordered the best wine or had my car valet parked, I thought of my folks and laughed, but they laughed last. Some bad investments almost wiped me out. That's why I took the bone breaker job for Lila Cheney. Paid good, Lila did. But that dried up, and I couldn't stand the thought of giving up those finer things. So we haven't seen Lila Cheney since the end of Uncanny X-Men 277. But obviously, Guido moved from her employ into government employment, and now he's going to be a key member of the new team. Very interesting page here, of course, from Larry Stroman. You know, in current times, in certain quarters, there would be some interest in the different body shapes and forms that Stroman drew at the time, like this big, thick thighed woman here. She seems to be Asian as well, who is in effect doing a full body massage of the small of Guido's back there in this personal home gym. So like, it's just interesting that he has this different way of drawing human anatomy that distinguishes different body types, and it's very well done. And this is an interesting gym that he's drawn as well, with the various different equipment and the angle that he's found, and that little kind of bodybuilder pose on Rain over there, and Lorna there in the corner working away on that stationary bike or whatever it is. It's interesting. It's very well thought out from Stroman in the art. So they're making a good team, Peter David and Stroman, and creating this comic via the Marvel method, the Marvel way. So we get the name of the masseuse, Babette, and just it's comical the way that she's thumping away on the small of his back, and he's enjoying it. And he says, anyway, the considerable check X Factor promised should keep me in good stead for some time to come. You know, Lex, Lorna, you kids could stay here. I got plenty of room. And Havoc responds, appreciate the offer, Guido, but I think I'll be wanting to get a place of my own. And so Peter David is playing around with the fact that Lorna and Alex, you know, were formerly lovers, but they've been separated during the time that Lorna was possessed by Malice of the Marauders, and Havoc was went through the Siege Perilous. Well, he spent a year in the outback in Australia, presumed dead, and then went through the Siege Perilous and became a magistrate in Genosha on the other side. So they've spent quite some time apart, like in Marvel time. What is it, like a year, 2 years that they haven't been an item? And Lorna picks up on his phraseology. Oh, Alex, don't you mean our own? And he doesn't respond. And Guido isn't tactful there. He says, could it be trouble in paradise? Lorna and Lex disagreeing about their potential future together. Mercy me, what will happen next? And then in teleports Lockjaw with Val Cooper and Quicksilver. That's nicely done there as well. Very cartoonish as she lands on her posterior. That's pretty well done. And there she is. Yeah, it's very kind of cartoony body language, but really, really well done and interesting too. So Havoc comes forward. What about Jamie? And this is one of those pages where clearly Stroman is just like fitting in the talking heads moments, and he's more interested in giving more space and time to other scenes elsewhere in the issue. But it's all very well done, and it flows very nicely. So, and there's an interesting little moment here. Lockjaw teleports them all to the scene of the crime in Washington, and the TV news reporter asks Alex, are you connected with? And he says, get out of my way. And then Lorna uses her powers of over the magnetic field to shift the news reporter and the cameraman out of the way. And then we get this little kind of tense moment between the former lovers. I could have handled that, Lorna. Okay, sure, Alex, fine. Trouble in paradise, says now. Quicksilver, dry up, she says. And, this is interesting too. Like, Quicksilver is, in my opinion, covertly, secretly interested in Lorna. I mean, like, in a romantic sense. And she ignores him throughout this issue and throughout the run. And it's intriguing characterization from Peter David. So Havoc checks the body. It is Madrox, and one of the orderlies there attending the scene, or maybe a civilian, just asks Alex, you know this guy? No, Einstein. My hobby is looking at random dead bodies and saying, it's Jamie all right. So another one of Peter David's jokes. I keep wanting to say, or I'm almost saying Larry David, but Peter David, yes. So, oh well, it beats collecting comics. And then this is interesting, more interesting characterization. Lorna's not amused. Stop it, she says. Stop joking. He was my friend, and we're going to find whoever did this and nail him to the wall for killing Jamie. And someone agrees, absolutely, the creeps must pay for this. And who is it? It's Madrox himself. So that's a great little moment too. And Val shouts there, Jamie, you're supposed to be dead. Sorry, he says. And then we get this interlude where we have this guy here, Vic Chalker, Professor Vic Chalker, and he is like a caricature of like a supervillain, and he's planning and plotting against mutants. I've had it with mutants, but when I'm through with them, there won't be a single mutant left anywhere in the world. None of them will be a match for me. None of them. So Larry David is working in this kind of jokey subplot regarding Chalker, and also some brothers he has as well, as it will turn out. And you can see him working away there on his plans and plots on this drawing board as well. It's interesting characterization here in the objects around him, the chemistry business, but also here the drawing board as well. And then we get another kind of like an interesting page here from Larry Stroman, where we've got these two panels and then repeated here, and the dialogue is changing as Val is looking back and forth between Madrox and his dupe on the ground under the sheet, and she says to him, so you're not Anne, he's excuse me Val, let me handle this, he says. He doesn't say it, the tail is going off panel, and it turns out to be Lorna. And she's really angry. Don't you ever do anything like this again, because she's thinking like it's some kind of practical joke, like a stupid joke. And it's not. He says, that could just as easily have been me. Somebody tried to kill me. And then he regales them with what happened at the end of the previous issue and how he made a dupe before going to the door. So we're getting more information now as to why he wasn't truly killed. The dupe was blasted out the apartment window. Then he made another dupe to go down onto the ground and keep an eye out for the gunman covertly. And then he says here, I've been hiding in the crowd all this time until you guys showed up. I was worried about that the shooter might be still hanging around. And Havoc says, so you wanted to wait until we were here so we could draw fire? Exactly. Now, if you'll excuse me, that's so funny as well. I'll better pick up after myself. So then he goes to his dupe, but he's unable to reabsorb it. So that is a mystery, because in general, that is how he operates. If a dupe is injured or killed, he can reabsorb it, but not this particular one. So very mysterious. Now, I want to make another couple of comments on the art before I move on from these pages. An interesting characteristic of Stroman's style is that for women, he doesn't draw in collarbones. So he doesn't draw in the collarbone there for Lorna. And also another aspect of his drawing of female faces is he doesn't draw her, the curl of her hair there is kind of hiding it here, but he doesn't draw in the line of the side of a nose. I'll point that out again later. But it's distinctive of his style, and he also gives them a little chin dimple as well. So he gives Lorna one and he gives Val Cooper one as well. But this is a weird shot here. So we've got this up shot, 3/4 profile on Madrox. It looks like he's got no teeth, and it looks like he's got no chin either. So that's kind of like bizarre looking. And I wondered, was something miscommunicated in the pencils, or is this exactly how he wanted it to look like? But I'm surprised that Al Milgrom didn't draw in some teeth there for Madrox. It's kind of weird looking. But in any case, let's get back to the story. So this is an interesting page where Madrox basically starts to crack up because he can't absorb the dead dupe. He says, I said, come on, snap out of this, reabsorb. You can't be separate from me. You're as independent as a toenail clipping. Come on, wake up, be alive. But nothing's happening. So Havoc pulls him off the dupe and he says, come on, get a grip. There's people all around. Just suck it up. But Jamie is aghast and perturbed. He says, he's really dead. I produced a corpse out of me. That's me lying there, or him. Oh God. So he's like having a nervous breakdown here. And then we get a Peter David joke at the end. Madrox should really try and pull himself together. Yeah, well, Quicksilver, I was thinking he was trying to. So that's a nice shot of the ambulance as well, that tilted angle. It's very well composed. Now this is another interesting page art-wise. And you can see here the device that Stroman has used. He's used the barrier here in front of the crime scene, and he's drawn in a crowd who are watching, a crowd of rubberneckers. But look at what he's done with all the body types, all the physiognomies, all the styles of faces, the coats, the clothes, the hats here, the chef's hat there. Really, really interesting stuff. The t-shirt here with the cartoon character, the bunny slippers. It's so bizarre, but so interesting. Like, none of this is necessary for the story, but clearly he enjoyed himself drawing all these different styles of onlookers in the crowd. Because here's our action over here with the TV news reporter Val and Havoc there. Where Val says to the TV news reporter that you see here several members of an elite organization the government is assembling called X Factor, fighting an investigative force brought in to handle certain odd or special cases. And another joke here at the end with the news reporter saying about Madrox's behavior. His behavior bordered on hysteria. He wasn't hysterical, says Val. How would you describe it? He was beside himself. So, okay, a bit of a classic Peter David groany play on words there at the end that he had to fit into that page. But it's the art here that's really stand out on this particular page. Look at the face on this guy. Look at the tiny little eyes on almost on either side of his head. That nose that's right up, touching his eyebrows practically. So bizarre. He's got like a balloon head there. Really, really interesting stuff. And also now you can see that characteristic of the way that he draws women's noses in 3/4 profile. No holding line for the side of the nose, the bridge of the nose. And again, look at the little dimple there that he's drawn on Val Cooper's chin as well. Interesting way of doing ears too. Yeah, I really do like Larry Stroman's art style. And speaking of which, again, this particular panel, we have this reverse angle on a chair in deep shadow and silhouette, and somebody's watching the screen, and he's watching the news report of Val speaking to April O'Hare here. And just the way that this is drawn, one of the subscribers, one of the commentators on my videos, on the previous video, pointed out that there is a parallel to be drawn between Larry Stroman's style and the artist Philip Nagel. And so one thing that you can look up of Philip Nagel's to see the parallel is his cover to the 1980s album Rio. And yeah, in particular, this particular panel is extremely reminiscent of that album cover. It is so on the nose here, so to speak, even though she has no nose rendered in there. It is really, really interesting. So this is a mysterious little scene. We've got a figure in shadow, the figure sitting in the chair watching the bank of TV screens, changing the channel to a cartoon. What's going on here? They're the ones who are behind Quicksilver's problem, but that was revealed in the previous issue, where the more he uses his powers, the more he ages, and also Madrox, that they're responsible for Madrox having been shot at the end of the previous issue. So this guy here says, I just don't like waiting around. And the person in the chair says, patience, my friend. Or in the words of the philosopher, don't have a cow, man. So a Bart Simpson reference. Now, I'm not going to spoil who, in particular, who this is in the chair, because that's going to be a big reveal coming up. But I do want to say that I will pop back to this business of him watching cartoons, and in particular referencing Bart Simpson here. It's a 90s reference, of course, on the one hand, but it does connect with something that was part of the original idea of this supervillain sitting in the chair whose identity is yet to be revealed. So I will return to it in the future. Here's another one of these pages where Stroman is packing a lot in terms of the storytelling. But a really great panel here is this one of Quicksilver reading at tremendous speed. So he's flying through these books, and I really, really like the effect here of like a DeLuca effect of his fingers pulling the books from the pile, flying through the pages and putting them over here on the red pile. It's so well done. So the team are in the Washington apartment building. They're playing, we've got we've got Guido. He doesn't have his code name yet. Guido and Lorna playing pool here. Quicksilver reading. And we've got a little dialogue here between Val and Havoc, where Val has set up a press conference to reveal X Factor to the world. And she's asking him, what does he think about the press conference? And he says, I don't. I dreaded the thought of this, getting up in public, being the nice, smiling government mutie, count me out. And Val says to him, you're counted back in. For better or worse, word's out about us. There'll be a lot of questions. After the Freedom Force debacle, it's important we head off any possible negative press. And then Lorna makes the point, Guido, if we're doing a press conference, you're going to need a super type code name. So he says, that sounds stupid. Why? It's expected. We can't say, here's X Factor, Havoc, Polaris, Wolfsbane, Multiple Man, and Guido. It doesn't fit. What about me? Asks Quicksilver. You slipped my mind. Pick a name for yourself, Guido. Something that would sum you up, strike fear into the hearts of criminals, and most important, would look good on t-shirts and Slurpee cups. And Quicksilver is like really deflated. Slipped your mind. But also, look, this is weird face again from Stroman. Again, this upshot on the head, like no chin or a very horizontal, flat chin. And the eyes are like sliding off either side of the head there. Again, I wonder, is that something that was misinterpreted in the pencils by Al Milgrom on the inks? I feel that Milgrom should have fixed that or lessened the weirdness of Quicksilver's eyes sliding off the side of his head there. This is a nice page here, and I like the colours on this particular page by Glynis Oliver. Trademark colours of hers. In particular, this almost magenta here is the background. There's no background in the panel, and I like the choice just to fill it all in color, and it's the right color that Glynis Oliver has chosen. So also we get this finally a moment between Lorna and Havoc where she asks him what they're going to be into the future. What's it going to be, Alex? What's it going to be with us? Friends, lovers, what? So he says, I'm not sure. How do you feel about it? And then she refers to the fact that they've had their heads and bodies messed with, and she feels like they're going to have to learn about each other all over again. And I like this from Peter David following, okay, who's your favourite author? Emily Bronte, she says. That kind of makes sense for Lorna. Emily Bronte, the author of Wuthering Heights. And Alex's favourite author is Stephen King. What's her favourite movie? Or sorry, she asks him, what's your favourite movie? And he says West Side Story, which is a bit of a surprise to me. And he asks her, Inherit the Wind is her answer. What's that about? It's the sequel to Gone with the Wind. Bad joke from Lorna, but ultimately from Peter David. But I really like this. Who's watching them on the street except for Rain? And of course, Rain has this loyalty / romantic connection to Havoc ever since that aborted mutate process was worked on her during Extinction Agenda, and she was to be Havoc's loyal mutate, and so that has lingered on. And Peter David, he hasn't just forgotten about that, he's getting story and character value from that. Now this is another really nicely coloured page as well, and laid out page by Stroman and Glynis Oliver, combining here art and colours. So Val, and also this made me think, I like the way that Peter David is spending some time on Val Cooper's characterization, because she didn't really have too much of a character under Claremont's pen. She was kind of like a typical Claremont woman, strong, tough as nails, very determined and independent minded. But Peter David gives her a softer edge, where she's shown to be concerned about Jamie. And look, you can see with his body language there, kind of sitting slumped on the chair, that he is in a funk. And it's all about the dupe. And he's wondering to her then, he says, I never thought about my multiples as anything other than foot soldiers. Maybe I never really understood their nature. But that dude lying in the street, he was a separate individual. His life was gone and he wasn't part of me anymore. What if he never was? What if, my God, Val, what if they have their own souls? What if they have their own feelings, values? So Val responds there. She says, this is getting a little metaphysical, Jamie. I mean, I thought they were just extensions of you. But what's interesting here is that Peter David, on a second run on X Factor, when he returns to X Factor some years down the road, about 10 years down the road, will actually return to this, and he'll pick up on this, and he'll explore the fact that Madrox's dupes really do have their own lives and worldviews. Now we get another one of these pages where Stroman is just flying through the story beats. So there's like a very cliched situation, an apartment building's gone on fire. Havoc and Polaris are still on their walk, getting to know each other again, and so they go to the rescue. So this woman is rescued from the apartment building, but of course she's got children in there that also need to be rescued, and Havoc does the business using his powers. And then we get this great one-page panel here of him emerging from the building just as it's collapsing from the fire, with the kids under this protective blanket as well. It's really nice work from Stroman, and interesting thoughts there, thought balloons from Havoc as well. Val's going to love how this looks on the evening news. Hope I'm around to see it. Lorna, I hope you can... Lorna baby, so he really does have feelings for her. I hope you can see me through all the smoke. If not, I'll have to catch up with you next lifetime. And this is what Val said was Alex's strength as a leader. He's great under pressure, and this is him proving that here in this particular issue. So she does spot him, and she uses this net to catch Havoc and the kids. And so all's well that ends well. Again, another interesting crowd scene. This face in particular makes me wonder whether Stroman was drawing people from magazines, or was he drawing people he knew into the comic. it's interesting anyway. So we've got a kiss there between Havoc and Lorna, and then this page is interesting as well. Like Stroman saving up space from this page for the splash there, and also this 3-panel page too, and building up to the revelation that Rain has followed them onto the street and that she's watching them, and watching Havoc jealously, because when Lorna says to him, "That took a lot of confidence in me, Alex, like jumping blind out of the apartment building, leap of faith, lover," he says, and Rain hears it, lover. She says icily, and I like the speech balloon there by Michael Heisler as well, and there with her fingers kind of locked into each other and her thumbs under her chin, like she's scheming, she's planning, she's going to upset this. You get that sense. So, you know, there's a kind of emotional dynamics in the team that are being revealed over these first couple of issues by Peter David and Larry Stroman, and it makes for an intriguing book. So let's get back to the story. So this is the press conference. So Val is up there introducing the team. That's a nice reverse angle on her there at the podium. Here comes the team out there, mostly in shadow, and then they're revealed with the curtains pulling back. We've got all the microphones and video cameras focused on them. That's a nice little team shot. But interesting that Stroman didn't keep a full page for this. But I think it works nonetheless. And so we get our first proper look, other than the cover to issue 71, the previous issue, at the costumes for the characters, including Rain's here. And the fact that Quicksilver isn't wearing a uniform. So X-Factor has a uniform and he's not wearing one, so he's keeping himself aloof from the team. But Guido hasn't come out onto the stage. He's still there behind the curtain, and he's been encouraged to come on out by Havoc, and in particular by Lorna, who tells him, "I think you look sexy," which gets his attention, a big grin on his face. I like the spotting of blacks here and the use of shadow as well from Stroman. It's really well done. So out he comes onto stage. Interesting, we get a reverse angle on him, and then we get a full look at him there in his X-Factor uniform. And he also takes a hint from one of the press men in the crowd as regards what his code name is going to be. So the press man there says, "Wow, he must be the strong guy. Every supergroup has a strong guy," and indeed they do. Yes, that's right, and his name is a strong guy. So Havoc says, "You can't call yourself strong guy. That's ridiculous. It sounds like a cartoon character. You got a problem with it, Shorty?" He says, "No." So Val is happy enough to throw things open for questions. Again, lots of panels on this page. This is a really interesting panel here, running the full length horizontally of the page, and all the figures in like really small, mostly in black, but just with little tiny details of their costumes, like Madrox's trench coat there, Lorna's hair, or the emblem there on Strong Guy on his uniform, just popping out a little bit. Really interesting. So Val gets to the point, or sorry, I think it's Havoc there, is saying that like why has he joined X Factor? He says because it fills a need to let the public know that yes, there are antisocial mutants, but also those who want to achieve positive ends, just as there are good and bad humans. And somebody in the crowd says there are some who say that mutants are freaks but claim they're homo superior to mask their own insecurity and freakishness. How do you respond to that? So Rain, of all people, responds with a very interesting Shakespeare quotation. "Hath not a mutant eyes, sir? Hath not a mutant hands, organs, dimensions, senses, affections, passions, fed with the same food, warmed and cooled by the same winter and summer as a human is? If you prick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh? If you poison us, do we not die?" She's quoting there Shylock from The Merchant of Venice, a statement of human equality written by Shakespeare all the way back in 1596. So she's coming across as educated, but then the guy asks a wrong question. Well, actually, no. You don't seem to die. You keep coming back and back. And so she leaps almost off the stage, puts her face right in his and says, "My first love is rotting under the ground. she's talking about Doug Ramsey from the New Mutants. So don't talk to me about death not being real. And he is put in his place. He says, yes, miss. Any other questions? Yeah, I've got a question. This hand reaching out. And we're coming to the last page. And we have a surprise here on the last page. Who could be asking the question? Is it one of the characters, one of the villains that we saw earlier in the issue? Or who could it be? So that's like probably in our mind as we turn the page. But no, it turns out to be Madrox. And he says, a question for the Multiple Man, because I happen to be the Multiple Man, and I know, and I want to know just who that imposter thinks he is. So that is quite the cliffhanger to end the issue on. Really, really good stuff. And I like also, it's quirky choice, but that we see the suit trousers there and the shoes, and then look up at the face of Madrox there, and the hand out as well, and the perspective, the foreshortening. It's really, really well done. And even the faces in the background too. Very, very interesting, quirky, designy art from Stroman, and a nicely paced out story. I don't have any problem with those 3 or 4 pages that have got about 15 panels on them. I don't mind that. I think it's nicely done. And the letters page, just one page for the letters, but the letters cover issues 68, 69 and 70, all packed into this one letters page here. Well, I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on X Factor 72. I have the feeling that X Factor 71 and 72 combined together really as a double-sized issue introducing the new team, because the team is coming together in 71 and there they are officially announced and presented at the end of 72. So it almost feels to me as if David kind of plotted out a double-sized issue, but then some decision was made just to separate it out into 2 issues. Maybe that was a better accommodation for Stroman, penciling the issue, because maybe there wasn't enough run-in time for a double-sized issue. But it feels to me, as I'm saying, that really 71 and 72 go together in terms of the formation of the team and the revelation of the team to the public. Well, let me know what you think about this issue itself, the writing, the art, in the comments to the video. If you enjoyed my commentary and review, please like the video on YouTube. It really helps the channel. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.